Good afternoon, everyone. I am just filled with so much love for you as I know that you're all in different places with your weeks right now. And I just know that God is doing something amazing and great in each of your lives right now, even if you don't see it yet. This week, we're going to be talking about actions. As you know, our topic is on transforming your health through the lens of Scripture. And this is an exciting week because we get to talk about how to get to where you want to go, which is probably why you signed up for this class. So this week we're on the actions layer. So we've talked about identity in your core, your beliefs, and this week we're talking about what we do as a result of our beliefs and our identity. This scripture here, who will set me free from this body of death, in Romans 7. I have said this scripture so many times, specifically as it related to just being released from just doing the things that I didn't want to be doing. I didn't want to be talking to my kids the way I did sometimes. I didn't want to be eating, as you know, I've talked it to death, almost eating all the time and really just couldn't stop. And all I wanted to do was be different. I wanted to be different without it being so hard. So with the action step here, what we're talking about is the beauty in creating new habits. That's what we're going to talk about today. Is ideally you want to be different without having to think about it. That's why your beliefs and identity are so integral to change and transformation, because if I already believe that I'm healthy, active, and fit, I will automatically choose things that line up with that current belief system. So if I believe that I'm a healthy, active, and fit person, whether or not my body matches that yet, if I believe that I'm a healthy, fit, and active person, then I am going to inevitably choose things to make that, your brain will inevitably choose things to make your beliefs true, because it needs it to be true. Okay? Very, very groundbreaking material here around habit change. So in scripture, Paul loves talking about, athletic events. He uses a lot of athletic analogies. So we have to train, we have to practice. He's telling Timothy, you have to train yourself to be godly. And that's not only as it relates to physical well-being and fitness and eating things that are good for your body and make you feel good and give you energy as opposed to taking it away. But he's also saying discipline seems unpleasant sometimes and even painful. I remember when I first started working out, and as you know, I've told you before, I never considered myself fit. I think my top weight was like 209, and I just remember I just didn't feel good. And I never considered myself someone that liked to exercise. I always did it in order to punish myself or to balance out all the stuff that I had eaten. And I just didn't even think about doing any type of movement that felt good. I was just trying to burn the calories off, okay? But we're talking about disciplining yourself to get a certain result, but in ways that actually feel good for your body. And we're going to talk about movement in a couple of weeks. But Paul's saying we have to discipline ourselves, even though it may be painful. And that can apply to anything that is good for you. So it takes discipline, it takes practice. I thought for so many years, okay, I believe these truths about the Bible. I think that maybe they could be true for me, but I'm not really sure. But my actions didn't reflect that. I mean, even in James, it says your faith is dead without works. I mean, God has wired us this way, that we have actions that are focused around what we believe, right? If we believe, have faith as small as a mustard seed, you will say this mountain move and it will go into the ocean, right? I didn't actually think that was possible. But what are our actions doing to back up what we say we believe? What would it look like? Okay, so let's say that, think about one thing that you feel like it's been this thing in the back of your mind, like maybe I could. maybe I could try that. Maybe, this thing that God has been pushing me to do, or my spouse has been asking me to do, maybe I could do that, but I feel fearful, or I don't feel like I could do that. I don't know if I'm up for that. I don't know if I want to do that. I don't know if I want to step out in faith to try that. Fill in the blank. Let me ask you something. What would your life look like in 6 months if you believed the thing were true? If you believe you could do X, and you started to act on those beliefs, what would your life look like in 6 months? And let me ask you another question. If you choose not to act, what will your life look like in 6 months? We have to train. We have to practice. It's very exciting because let me tell you, anything that you want, anything that you believe that God has promised you, you can have. Absolutely, it is within your grasp. Are you willing to take the step to make that so? So what does Scripture say about our actions? So we're supposed to diligently teach the laws and the good things of the Bible to our children. We should talk of them as we sit in our house and when we walk by the way, and when you lie down, when you rise. The truth of Scripture is supposed to be taught, supposed to be said, it's supposed to be on our hearts. How would that impact what you do differently? And Paul goes on to say in 1 Timothy 4:8, for while the body is training is of some value, godliness is of value in every way. So what if we're focusing on seeking God's kingdom first, truly seeking God's kingdom first, as opposed to compartmentalizing? We're seeking God's kingdom when we're in church. We're seeking God's kingdom when we read our Bible. We're not seeking God's kingdom when we're standing in front of the fridge and stuffing our face. Or you fill in the blank. What is the thing that you are using as a crutch that you're maybe afraid to give up because you don't believe? I know this is so hard. You don't believe that maybe God can be enough for you in that area. What would it be like for you to push that crutch down and let it fall and die maybe? And you walk forward, possibly with a limp at first, but allowing yourself to get stronger. My son Jacob broke his leg about 2 months ago, and he just recently got his cast removed. And he's not supposed to put a ton of weight on the leg that's getting better. It has lost a little muscle mass, but it's like he refuses to put any weight on it at all. And I keep telling him, if you keep walking around like your leg is broken, you're not going to get any stronger. It's the same thing with our habits. It takes practice. You have to practice. You have to continue to tell yourself, this is who I am. And you fill in the blank. And we'll talk about mental rehearsing later, because that's a great tool we can use. So let's just look at weight loss and health as an example. So 93% of diet. Look at the statistics here. Lifestyle is the best medicine, but we don't do what we need to do. Why? Because we want to maintain love, safety, and belonging. And that is why we have our habits structured in the way that they are, because we want to maintain love, safety, and belonging. I have a friend who explained to me that their mother was the daughter of a farmer. And so every morning she would make these huge breakfasts for her husband, who was out on the farm, and for my friend as a child. And the family didn't spend a lot of money or resources, and didn't have a lot of money or resources to do other fun things. And so my friend always thought of food as their entertainment, and they had to finish everything on their plate. And as a result, my friend really struggles with their weight. And so we don't do what we need to do because we're trying to maintain love, safety, and belonging. We don't want our mom to be mad at us for not cleaning our plate. And even though we might be 35, 45, 55, whatever, that little child inside of us is still, well, I don't want to be disappointing. I don't want to be a disappointment, so I need to finish everything on my plate. Or when I speak my mind, I'm not worth listening to, so I'm not going to speak up. I mean, fill in the blank, whatever that thing is. So if, let's say that you want to speak up more at work, you want to speak your mind more. You feel like there's something that you have to offer that's unique for your work team. What would happen if you started speaking up? What would happen if you started just one thing a day, or one thing a week, even something small, something manageable? When we talk about changing habits, I always try to start very small and manageable, because if we don't, we want to take the low-hanging fruit. If we don't see immediate results, sometimes we give up and we quit. But the truth of the matter is that a lot of times before we change a habit, we reach sort of like a valley and we get frustrated. And so a lot of us will give up, and then we don't continue on with that habit. But there's a great book called The Atomic Habit. The Atomic Habit. It's a great book. And it talks about how you'll get to this point where you don't feel like you're getting any results. You've tried this and for 10 days or 15 days or 30 days and it hasn't worked. So you're not going to try anymore. But the statistics show that if you keep trying, if you keep working, if you keep believing, if you keep going, just like the little engine that could, I think I can, eventually you will crest that mountain and you will make it over. So think of 1 to 2 habits that you have right now. And think of the ones, you can think of a good one that's serving you or one that's not serving you, it doesn't matter. But I want you to think about something that, it could even be as simple as brushing your teeth. When did you form that habit? Why did you form it? Some habits are just in order to keep us clean or healthy. And we've just always done them, so we keep doing them. But some habits, so like think of something a habit that's not serving you. Really think about that for a moment. And where did that habit come from? When did it take root? And in any way, was it created in order to create or maintain love, safety, and belonging? If it has and it's serving you, great. If it's not serving you, possibly we'll think about or talk about going in another direction so that we can either transform that habit and it is serving you, or phase in a new one. So this is where we're going to talk about keystone habits. So the habit loop here, this is a very famous description of how we do our habits. So basically you have this craving, okay? So I'm going to say my craving is for chocolate, okay? And the cue is I feel sad, someone didn't listen to me, I don't feel heard, and so now I start to crave chocolate. My routine is I go to get a piece of chocolate, and my reward is my brain sends off pleasure stimuli that says, oh, chocolate, yay, this tastes good. Okay, so this could be any habit loop, really. So let's think of a habit let's say that we want to change this habit. Okay, the recipe is trying to keep the cue and the reward the same, but you change the routine. So you're going to be inserting a new routine in here. This scenario and recipe is tried and true. It really works. Coaches all over the United States and probably the world use this habit loop in order to change their players, so that they can get them to basically do the plays on cue. They don't even just think about it because it's a habit. Okay, so let's think about a scenario here. Okay, so my cue is I feel sad. My craving is for chocolate. I feel sad, so I crave the chocolate. Okay, usually I would go to my pantry for a reward of chocolate. Okay, so in this particular case, what I would do is I would say, this is how you strategize and practice so that you can set yourself up for success. Take that routine that is not serving you, and you're going to insert something else. So it doesn't really serve you to just stop doing the habit, because we're going to instinctively go back to those habits. That's what we want to do. Our brain likes it. Okay, so you have to put something into that routine, just like in scripture, it talks about, what is the scripture reference where it talks about a man that has been demon possessed, that the demon leaves the man, and the man cleans up his life, and the demon comes back, and the man's all swept up and everything looks nice and clean. So he brings back 7 demons worse than the first. So the last state of the man is worse than the first. I think of this scripture when I think about new habits, because some of the habits because the devil knows we're wired this way, okay? We have to put in something good in there. Otherwise, it's an empty space. It's going to be inhabited by something. You're going to serve something there, okay? So let's talk about the scenario. So I feel sad. I have the cue and craving for chocolate. So I am going to think to myself, okay, I'm going to build a nourishment menu. A nourishment menu is just a menu of things that make you feel good and make you feel nourished, that are good for you, that are nourishing, fruitful. I really like hot tea. I like hot baths. I like to put blankets and towels in the dryer and then use them and pull them out and use them. I like to sometimes watch a funny YouTube video and laugh with my husband. Like, I think that's really fun. So I'm going to make a strategy now around this habit loop. And what I'm going to do is, when I get sad and I'm going to queue for chocolate, I'm going to go to the pantry, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, the next time I feel that way, I'm going to pull one of these things from my nourishment menu and I'm going to replace it here. And you're going to have to do this for a while until you get used to that new habit loop. It doesn't pick up right away, but eventually it will. It will. You have to practice. Okay, so you're going to put, let's say I'm going to put hot tea there. My reward is, oh, that feels warm and comforting. So I'm still in the same habit loop, but I've changed the routine. That's the key. Now let's talk about keystone habits. This is one of my favorite things to talk about. Keystone habits are habits that you do every day without fail, no matter what, and they're usually around the same time. There was a study done years ago with songs. There was a song that was produced and it wasn't getting any traction. And so the producers were like, how can we get this song to be liked by the general public? Because people aren't really like digging it right now. So what they did was they sandwiched the song between 2 really popular songs on the radio. And guess what? The song went viral. Everybody wanted to listen to it. It won a bunch of awards because they sandwiched it between something people already like. They already are used to listening to it in their brain, and it's familiar. The brain loves things that are familiar. So let me give you an example here. A keystone habit would be brushing your teeth in the morning. So if you wanted to take your vitamins every day, put them next to your toothbrush with a bottle of water. That's a good an example. I had a coaching client. She said, I really want to get closer to the Lord, and I want to make sure that I'm getting out of bed, early in the morning so I can spend time with the Lord. So what she did was, we found a keystone habit. When she sets her alarm, she usually does one thing in order to turn her alarm off to give her another 20 minutes of sleep. So we had her put her phone across the room, and I told her, I was like, I know that your goal is to have your quiet times regularly, but if you feel like you're having to force yourself to do it, you might not stick with it. So what we had her do was, we had her get up, and she has to actually go across the room to turn the alarm off. And I said, while you're going across the room to turn your alarm off, then I want you to turn your light on. If that's all you can do that morning, great. But if you feel like, I'm up now, I think I'll go ahead and do my prayer time. And that was really helpful for her, because she was able to, she just decided to stay up and did her quiet time regularly every morning. So ideally, if there's a really big, important habit that you're trying to implement, ideally you want to do that around a keystone habit. So if there's a habit that you're trying to phase out, ideally you would want to look for a keystone habit that occurs around the same time as the habit that you want to phase out, and go ahead and do this habit loop where you're inserting a new routine that you would rather do instead. So that's how you use keystone habits to change and transform your habits. So I love this. In 2009, there was a study done, And the participants only did 4 things. So they stopped smoking, they exercised for 3.5 hours per week. They ate a mostly plant-based diet, which, by the way, there are 2 vegans in our house, 2 vegetarians, 2 pescatarians, and what I call 2 regulars. So we have 7 people in our house, all with different dietary restrictions and needs. And we do a lot of plant-based foods. And I have found, now this isn't true for everyone, but if you really feel like you're wanting to go like more towards a plant-based diet, it's totally doable, and totally doable without being hungry and still getting enough protein. So you just need, if you need a little bit of guidance, there's tons of research on what types of protein you can implement that is plant-based. Anyway, so they did a mostly plant-based diet and maintained a healthy weight lower than 30 BMI. They were at a 78% lower risk of developing chronic disease just by changing those 4 things. So if there's something in your health that you're trying to change, then I would suggest that you start small. Start with something that you feel like is doable and that is repeatable and is a habit that you can easily implement in your day-to-day life. So what does scripture say about our actions? That we have to train. We have to practice, remember? It takes about 66 days to form a new habit. And another fun fact that I read in the Atomic Habit book, so great. I was going to see if I had it laying around here, but I think I've put it away. So 1%, get this, a 1% improvement every day for a year in one area will give you a 37% improvement. 37%, that's pretty good. So I thought to myself when I was first trying to get healthy on the outside, well, how many years has it taken me to gain this weight? And I wasn't strong. I mean, like I started working out a lot, but it was slow. For a whole month, all we did was stretch because I had been so tense that my muscles were naturally kind of coming forward like this, that we spent a whole month just opening up and setting that foundation to get strong. And so I encourage you to be patient. Be patient with yourself as you figure these things out. Your body is the most amazing free laboratory that you have. It's the expert on you. So you basically have these opportunities to try things out that work for your body in particular. One of my favorite stories that I've ever read was about Michael Phelps. It was so encouraging. It was in the book, The Power of a Habit by Duhigg. It's a yellow book. And one of the things he talks about in that book is how Michael Phelps trained. So Michael Phelps's trainer discovered, I think, Michael when he was about 9 or 10 years old. He had a really long torso, and he's like, this kid is built to swim. But one of the things that they did was they created this mental video. So this is how the video worked. So basically, his trainer would tell him, Michael, every night before bed, I want you to play this video in your head. And in this video, I want you to think about yourself. I want you to be in your body and actually physically be thinking about yourself swimming between the ropes, breathing, feel yourself breathe. See how many strokes it takes to get from one end of the pool to the next as you're doing the laps. And visualize yourself getting faster, the distance between the ropes. I want you to, and anytime they would do something new in their training, he said, add it to the video. And I want you replay it every night before you go to sleep. This process is called mental rehearsing. If you talk to almost any successful person, they will tell you that they have mentally rehearsed what they were about to do in their head many times before they actually implemented what they were going to do. Well, the interesting thing is Michael won a gold medal while blind, basically. So what happened was during one of his races, he had his goggles filled up with water and he couldn't see. But because he had mentally rehearsed so many times the distance, how far he needed to go, how fast he needed to go. Additionally, they had trained in his pool with the lights off, just in case something like this happened. And he won a medal. I think it was a gold medal, even though he couldn't see. And you know, with the speed of which some of these swimmers swim, they could really injure themselves running into the wall, right? So this just goes to show we are all wired the way Michael Phelps is with our brains. We all have the capability of rehearsing in our minds, believing what we see. We have a vision for where we're going based on what the truth of Scripture says we have received from the Lord, where we can go with the Lord's strength and with his help. So why don't we, when we have these resources available to us? So mental rehearsing, basically the way it works is you are rehearsing something that you want to do, that you have envisioned yourself doing, and you only need about 30 seconds a day, actually, is what the studies show. And what you want to do is you want to envision yourself in the scenario that you want. But you don't want to watch it like you're watching a video. You want to actually be in your body. So like in your finger slots, in your toe slots, breathing with your lungs, watching yourself go through the motions and getting the results that you want. So for example, I read about this gentleman that went into a business meeting and he nailed it. I mean, he went in front, he basically was presenting a proposal to the people in the conference room, and they were very closed off when he went in, but he just did an amazing job. And afterwards, one of the men came up to him and he said, "How did you do so well? I mean, that they just loved you in there." And he said, "Before I went in, I imagined myself in there and that everybody liked me, that everybody wanted to hear what I had to say, and I had a smile on my face. And those are the things that I was believing when I walked in there and continued to believe all the way through till the end of the meeting." That's how mental rehearsing works. And this is the beauty. Your brain doesn't know the difference between what you've imagined and what's reality. So what your brain will inevitably do is it will bring to mind and put you in situations that will support what you have mentally rehearsed. Okay? This is kind of like groundbreaking information. So if you imagine yourself, let's go back to the eating healthy scenario. If you imagine yourself going to the pantry, you're about to eat the chocolate or whatever it is, fill in the blank, and instead you're like, you know, I don't really feel like chocolate today. I think I'm going to go for a walk, or I think I'm going to call my best friend, or I think I'm going to have some hot tea, or whatever it is it is for you. You're mentally rehearsing yourself doing that every morning. Typically when I do my mental rehearsing is during a Keystone habit, and that's usually right after my prayer time in the morning. So if there's something I'm really fearful about, I give it to the Lord. I ask for his guidance on what truth he wants to speak into that place in my life. And then I begin to mentally rehearse myself in that scenario, getting that result. And I believe that God will continue to work through that and bring about his glory. Thank you, Michael Phelps. So in 2 weeks, we are going to be talking about results. That's why everybody signed up, is to learn about results. So we talked about actions today. I hope this has been some really great food for thought as you step forward in faith and trust, believing that you can do all things through Christ. You really can. And if there's something that he has put on your heart that he wants to achieve through your life, he absolutely has a plan to do that. So you have to ask yourself, are you willing to go along for the ride? So our last meeting, so make sure you read this note carefully. We're not meeting next week. We are off next week. And I still will be putting out the video, the results video, however, for you to review. But our last meeting, mark it on your calendar, is going to be Thursday, not Wednesday, but Thursday, August 6th at 6:30. And at that meeting, we will also have a special guest. We'll be at that meeting, we'll be talking about actions and results. Both of those videos will be at that meeting where we will discuss those. And Ashla Schoen, who is my good friend and personal trainer, is going to be coming and talking with us about movement and clearing up the confusion. The way she sees movement, the lens that she sees movement, and her love for the Lord is just beautiful and creative. I love moving and movement because of the things I've learned with her. And so I'm really excited about our time together and your questions and some of the things that she'll be able to shed some light on for you. So until then, I hope you all have an amazing week, 2 weeks, and you're having a great summer. And I just pray that, again, that the Lord continues to bless you and watch over you and keep you and your family. And I'm just so waiting in expectancy for all the great change that He's about to do in your life. We'll see you next time.